A lot of money that can be made.
Which is why the most powerful countries and organizations in the world are pushing 5G forward. And I'm talking about the US, Russia, China, and many more. They're all getting involved in 5G.
Thank you for going there. Let's talk about this for just a moment. Because what is it that all of these powerful countries are seeing? Why are they getting involved, and what's going on behind the scenes there?
So, as we speak, the US and China are in a drag-out fight to be the first to 5G. China is pulling out all the stops. According to Chinese insiders, 5G is an urgent national priority for China, one to be achieved by any means necessary and possibly at great cost. Possibly at great cost. Possibly at great cost. So they're doing everything they can, from giving out wireless spectrum for free to clamping down on US wireless companies, and the US is responding in kind. President Trump and his administration have also made the 5G rollout a national priority. He's already signed 2 executive orders to speed up the rollout. And on April 12, he held a press conference saying that 5G is a race America must win. It's a race we will win. So this is why the president has clamped down on Chinese 5G companies like ZTE and Huawei. The official reason given is national security, but really, it's about being first to 5G.
Okay, but again, why? I mean, what difference does it make who's first to get there?
So, to use an old expression, to the victor go the spoils. Look at this quote from the Wall Street Journal. Companies that own 5G patents stand to make billions of dollars in royalties. Countries with the largest and most reliable networks will have a head start in developing the technologies enabled by faster speeds. So we can't overestimate how big 5G is going to be for the economy. Billions and billions, even trillions of dollars are at stake. And President Trump knows this, so he wants to make sure America is first. It will be a major win for his administration.
I see what you're saying about it's all, important for the economy. How big are we talking?
So let me put it this way. If America is first to 5G, Trump is a lock-in for re-election. That's my prediction.
Wow.
If he gets 5G, he will get the White House.
Can I quote you on that? No question about it in your mind?
No question about it.
So from what I'm hearing, it sounds like we can expect more and more pressure from the White House in the coming months?
Absolutely right. Executive orders, press conferences, tweets, the whole 9 yards. And every time the president does something, it should put a smile on your face, because it's only going to mean more money faster for 5G investors. About every 10 years, our wireless internet technology gets a major upgrade. In the tech world, we call it a new generation. That's what the G in 5G stands for.
Right.
We started with 1G back in the 80s, then 2G in the 90s, and so on, all the way up to today. Right now, we're in the final stages of the 5G rollout, and this is what you've been hearing about in the news. Verizon, AT&T, and others are all racing to build out their 5G networks. And it's been a massive project, one of the biggest infrastructure projects our country has ever seen. I'm not exaggerating. We're literally talking about hundreds of billions of dollars of investment, and everyone from President Trump to small town mayors has been involved in this. The good news is that all of the effort is about to pay off. Just a few months from now, 5G will be available coast to coast. We're going to see the first nationwide networks go live. Now, this is going to be a breakthrough event. It's going to change your life in many ways.
What's the big deal about 5G?
One word, speed. All these new breakthroughs are data hogs. Listen to this. The average cell phone uses less than half a gigabyte of data per day. And that's just from people surfing the web, checking their email, and so forth.
Right.
Half a gigabyte per day. But a single self-driving car, it uses 4,000 gigabytes of data per day. We're talking about exponentially more, and that's just self-driving cars. Virtual reality is projected to require even more data. In order for these technologies to take off, today's wireless technology simply will not work. It won't cut it. That's where 5G comes in. It will make the internet up to 100 times faster than it is today.
100 times, wow.
So that's a game changer, Chris, and we've never seen this kind of leap before.
Right, what was the leap in terms of speed when we went from 3G to 4G? I don't know.
Right, it was only 10x.
10x.
That sounds like a lot, but this 5G dwarfs that. It's the equivalent of turning a single lane road into a 100-lane superhighway. So, you can see why USA Today is calling 5G the next tech revolution. It literally opens the doors to not just billions, but trillions of dollars.
My frustration is that life is going to change so much in the next 10 years. And it's either going to be great or it's going to be horrific. And I don't know which, but I'm excited to find out. But nobody's talking about it. Nobody, when I talk to people and say, no, you don't understand, 2030 is a different world. They can't process that. What does the world look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
Right away. Remember that date, October 1st?
That's right. So how does that play into all of this?
So I believe on October 1st, the race to be first to 5G will kick into high gear. It will be a turning point.
All right, why is that? What's so important about that date?
So here it is. On that day, China is planning to roll out the biggest 5G network to date. You see, last year, America beat China by launching the first 5G network. But now China's leapfrogging the US. They're set for a 40-city 5G launch on October 1st. That will be the biggest launch to date. And when that happens, watch out. I think it's going to be a Sputnik moment here in the United States. It's going to turn the 5G race into a final sprint to the finish line. 5G is a wireless technology that's been under development for about 10 years. And the way the industry works is that every 10 years, the industry develops standards and then starts building out the next generation of wireless network. We started all the way back with first generation back in the 80s. We moved to 2G in the 90s. We moved to 3G in 2000, 4G in 2010, and now we're ready. In fact, we need fifth generation wireless technology because fourth generation wireless networks are congested. If you've ever had trouble with dropped phone calls, or for some reason your email won't download, or if you can't actually access the internet on your phone, the network's congested. There's not enough capacity for you to get what you need, and that's why 5G is so important.
According to that script, what's the next move?
Okay, well, I would focus on devices. You see, these rollouts follow a simple script: infrastructure, devices, and then services. And we're right now at the tail end of infrastructure. That's the network build out, the physical network. Once that's in place, the stage is set for the market to be flooded with new devices. That's where we're at right now.
Okay, when you say devices, you're talking about 5G ready smartphones and tablets.
Precisely, as well as the smaller devices that go inside of those, the semiconductors, the chips, and so forth. Yeah. So now, in previous rollouts, it sometimes took a while to see new devices. They didn't come to market until well after the infrastructure was in place, but not this time around. With the amount of money at stake, companies aren't waiting. So already Samsung, LG, Motorola, and ZTE have 5G ready phones. And there are several more on the way. That includes Apple. A 5G iPhone is reported to be in the works, and more will follow.
It's very interesting. Even before all of the infrastructure is in place, these companies are already getting their devices in place. They're lining up the starting line.
Right, so everything's happening. And Facebook is working with 450 telecom stakeholders to spread 5G across the globe.
What's the specific benefit to them?
It's not just a benefit, their future literally depends on it. They've spent billions and billions of dollars on all the technologies that 5G will unlock. So a few years back, Facebook paid $2 billion for Oculus VR, a virtual reality startup. And Google has been working on self-driving cars since 2009. Apple has been scooping up augmented reality companies now for at least 4 years. These companies are battling to rule these new technologies, but none of them will truly pay off until 5G goes nationwide. That's why there's enormous demand building up in the private sector.
Yeah, these huge tech titans battling it out, spending billions of dollars. Sounds like good news for investors, right?
Absolutely. Anybody who gets in front of that money could see some big windfalls. And that's why we're seeing so many big name investors stake their claims in 5G.
Really, big names. Who are they? Can you give us?
How about Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, George Soros, and many others? Buffett famously maintains a small focused portfolio, and for years he shunned tech stocks. But recently, Berkshire Hathaway invested $1.9 billion in Charter Communications, a company testing 5G in 6 US markets. Through his foundation, Bill Gates also has $682 million directly invested in a little-known stock positioned to benefit in a big way from 5G, Crown Castle International. And George Soros' largest holding by far is Liberty Broadband, a direct 5G play.
So in other words, you have the world's greatest value investor, the world's greatest speculator, and one of the world's greatest tech minds, all with stakes in companies positioned to benefit from 5G.
Look, these guys definitely weren't born yesterday. They know that each generation of wireless technology has delivered huge windfalls. Now they want to get in on the next one.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Now,
You probably don't know this, but we have 5G networks right here in Dallas today. Most of Manhattan is actually covered by 5G.
Real 5G?
Real 5G operating at 1 gigabit per second. The only challenge is it's kind of like a hotspot design.
Mm-hmm.
Think about lily pads in a pond. The entire pond isn't covered yet.
Right, and because this needs towers everywhere. What do you make of the people who say it's dangerous, it's gonna, being bombarded by these waves is gonna kill us all?
It is a conspiracy. And it's actually a conspiracy that has been fueled by some of the United States competitors.
Right? I've been saying this. People
Yes.
don't believe me.
No,
it is
absolutely.
so clearly.
Absolutely. And that's very factual. I've read the research that's been done on rats, putting a very high-powered transmitter right next to a rat, right inside of a cage. There is absolutely no evidence that these wireless networks, whether they be 1, 2, 3, 4G, have had any negative health impact.
5.
right. Do you think it's going to work? I'm thinking about Russia. I mean, we learned in the last election that Russia knows how to sow seeds of chaos, shall we put it, here in America. Are you worried they could actually succeed in slowing things down for the rollout?
No, not at all. The 5G train has literally left the station.
Okay.
Nothing is going to stop it. I haven't even mentioned what's happening in the private sector. Telecom companies are in the process of spending $275 billion. I'm talking about Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile and Sprint, Charter Communications, and more. Think about that for a minute. Think about how much money that is. If just a portion of that makes its way to some small 5G companies, it could send them skyrocketing.
Within 3 years, we will have the vast majority, and when I say vast majority,
How long?
within 3 years, we will have the vast majority of the U.S. population covered by 5G wireless networks.
Without China? Technology, Chinese technology.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Now, I know that some folks may be skeptical about AI, artificial intelligence. After all, we've been hearing about it for decades now, and a lot of people have kind of given up hope. But here's what you need to realize. Over the past few years, the technology that enables AI has finally started to catch up. It's all around us today. Alexa and Siri are powered by AI. Amazon and Netflix use AI technology to offer recommendations. The military uses AI to improve their warfare platforms. And even farmers are now using AI to maximize crop yields. With 5G, this is only going to accelerate.
Honestly, it changes everything. The truth is that we'll look back on this 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and this will be one for the history books.
This is like a moon landing.
This is
right?
absolutely a moon landing.
And it was something that recently there were lots of people that said, oh, that's a long way down the road.
Correct. As recently as last year, experts were saying we are a long way away from quantum supremacy.
10 years
right.
plus.
Absolutely.
And we just hit it, and it kind of went by, and nobody noticed.
Why?
Well, it's really very simple. This is far and away the biggest tech opportunity available in the markets today. And it absolutely could be as big as anything I've seen in my 27 years in the industry. During this final phase of the 5G boom, we're going to see an unprecedented amount of technological breakthroughs, things we've been waiting decades for. So, for example, I'm talking about artificial intelligence, remote robotic surgery, virtual reality, augmented reality, the Internet of Things. They're all going to break through in ways that seemed impossible just a few years ago. And that's because we'll finally have the underlying infrastructure to reach their full potential.
What does the world look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
This, but realize that when the internet was first created by we physicists, it was male, it was hierarchical, it was to dominate over the Soviet Union. Why did the Pentagon give us millions of dollars to create the internet? It wasn't so that you could email your friends. That's not why we physicists created the internet. It was created to dominate a nuclear war with Russia so we can communicate and rebuild America after New York City is in ruins, Los Angeles, Chicago are vaporized. That's how we're going to recreate America after World War III. That's how we're going to recreate America after World War III. That's how we're going to recreate America after World War III. Today, the internet is female. 51% of the users of the internet are women, and they use it to touch people. That's what it's all about. Technology looks frightening when you don't know it. But then you realize the whole purpose of the technology is to be female, to touch people, make contact with people. So the internet has flipped from being a war-fighting device to be a device that allows you to communicate to all your friends.
Next generation of phones that come out, you will have an artificial intelligence enabled supercomputer in your hand capable of running any digital assistant.
The next generation?
Yes, it's coming out in 2020, within the next 12 months. And the current forecast for 2020 are at least 300 million 5G enabled handsets. So the explosion is literally happening in the next 12 months. We're off to the races.
What is that going to mean? You mean upside and downside?
Well, you gave a great example of services that were only available to the very wealthy.
Right.
A butler,
Right.
a personal assistant, will literally be in the hand of anyone who can afford or get access to a smartphone.
And it's not like a calendar service. It's AI.
It is full-blown AI with the ability to do those tasks that consume, on average, 2 or 3 hours of our time a day.
If you had a Centurion black card, an American Express black card, you have access to the concierge.
Concierge, yes.
Okay? That's your phone will do that, and it'll be easy.
Absolutely. Natural language. So, in fact, the last 18 months have been spectacular in terms of the advancements that have been made in what's called NLP, or natural language processing, which is the artificial intelligence that's used to understand, interpret, and act upon human speech.
Information, that information can be zapped from one place to another. And believe it or not, telepathy is coming faster than you think. We taped this again for the Science Channel special, 12 episodes, 30 minutes apiece, starting December 1st. Here's how it works. This is Brown University, where we have a stroke victim on the lower right. He is paralyzed. He cannot move. He cannot communicate with his loved ones. He is a quadriplegic, a stroke victim. On the upper left is a chip. They put the chip in his brain, shown on the lower left. You can see the dot where the chip is placed. You hook up that chip to a laptop. That person, who is now totally paralyzed, can now read emails, surf the web, answer emails, do crossword puzzles, do everything you can do on a computer, except this person happens to be paralyzed. This means that in the future, you may want to simply communicate with the web by thinking about it. We can also use this technology, by the way. This is how it works, by the way. He's allowed to see the laptop. You see the connection on the right. An electrode that connects to a laptop computer, the world's first direct link between the human mind and a computer.
Musk just had his, what's the new technology? It's like a thread, almost a sewing machine into the head.
Basically, the company's called Neuralink, and Neuralink. Yes, it's a brain-computer interface. Basically, very, very tiny, minuscule holes, and inserting wires into the brain for the purpose of connectivity.
Correct. So now I'm connected to the connected world. I'm connected to AGI, which would give me a great advantage over anybody else.
Yes.
I mean, you're now in a place to where you literally would be a monkey if you don't have that. You can't compete. How far away are we? I mean, Musk says 5 years away from his technology being ready. How far are we away before the real wealthy, who are be the ones that get it first in any technology? How long before some people have that?
Yes.
And others don't.
Yeah. I believe we'll absolutely have that within 10 years.
Oh my God.
And what's interesting about this is actually, so I believe actually Musk's timeline, because we're doing it already. So we're connected. We can now control a robotic prosthesis just through an implant in the brain. And that's not the same as being connected to a supercomputer or to the cloud, but it's not that big of a leap to think that as our own abilities, this essentially exponential growth in artificial intelligence technology, our ability to design these systems to enable this brain-computer interface, it's not a leap to realize that this is a matter of years, not decades.
What happened? How are these other people making a living? What are they doing? All these jobs have been replaced. That's wonderful. And it's one reason why Yang has been interesting to me. I disagree with his conclusions, but when he's talking about UBI, it doesn't work. In my opinion, it doesn't work.
Correct.
It won't work.
Correct.
However, at least he's having the conversation of we're going to have, the Mark Zuckerbergs on crack cocaine, steroids, Nazi kind of experiments to keep the body going. That person that is really in control of a lot and the money, and I don't see how that's going to change. And then you're going to have all the people who have just lost their jobs and didn't even see it coming. How do you make this world work?
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. So, universal basic income. This is what this is all about. My initial knee-jerk reaction was, get the out of here. Like, universal basic income, just going to give people money. They're just going to be lazy. Nothing's ever going to get done. That's a terrible idea. And then I started paying attention to the rise of AI and automation and how many jobs are going to get taken away from. And then once you see the actual numbers, It's pretty staggering.
Yeah, so I've been driven to universal basic income in part because I've been looking at the numbers. The 5 most common jobs in the United States right now are administrative and clerical work, retail and sales, food service and food prep, truck driving and transportation and manufacturing. Those 5 jobs comprise about half of all American jobs. Only 32% of Americans graduate from college. So the average American is a high school grad doing one of these 5 jobs. And if you look at it, technology is already doing a number on each of these jobs. Like the first, administrative and clerical, includes call center workers, and AI is in the process of taking over that job. Retail and sales, 30% of malls are closing in the next 4 years. So the danger here is to think of it as artificial intelligence is coming. It's actually already eating up the most common jobs in our economy, and it's driving Americans into distress in various ways in the number. We're going to go through a revolution. You'd rather undertake it than undergo it. You know, it's like if the revolution's coming, then we need to get in front of it and start making it work for us instead of just waiting for it to tear us apart.
Imagine a sum of cash deposited in your bank account every month for doing absolutely nothing. That's the gist of universal basic income. And the idea is catching on.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. Money for nothing.
Guaranteed income in the background every month.
But is the American public, which has historically championed the idea that anyone can succeed through hard work, ready for UBI? The International Monetary Fund defines universal basic income as payments made to a large population with minimal or no strings attached. By 2030, automation could displace up to 1/3 of jobs worldwide. And nearly 40% of jobs in the US could be automated by the early 2030s. The jobs most at risk involve repetitive physical activity, including clerical, manufacturing, and transportation work.
So what happens? What should we be? Is anybody talking about some of the philosophical problems that we're going to be facing within 10 years?
There is, to be fair, there is a lot of very thoughtful discourse and discussion about how we're going to deal with this at a societal level. There's not much being done about it, which is a complaint that I have.
Nobody's even talking to the average person in America. They're going to be blindsided. They're not going to see this stuff coming.
We're looking at sending checks to Americans immediately. And what we've heard from hardworking Americans, many companies have now shut down, whether it's bars or restaurants. Americans need cash now, and the president wants to get cash now.
Universal basic income is making its way from the fringes to a serious topic of debate thanks to a growing number of high-profile advocates.
I do think there's a pretty good chance we end up with a universal basic income or something like that due to automation.
We should explore ideas like universal basic income to make sure that everyone has a cushion to try new ideas.
This universal basic income would be the greatest catalyst to entrepreneurship and creativity that we've ever seen.
So what happens? What should we be? Is anybody talking about some of the philosophical problems that we're going to be facing? Talking to the average person in America. They're going to be blindsided. They're not going to see this stuff coming.
Getting money to Americans taking a hit, senators are working on a financial relief bill.
Tonight, there are questions on how to get that money into the hands of those who need it.
Urgent need right now. Lawmakers are getting closer to a deal on that $1 trillion stimulus. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin saying overnight we must be there by Monday. The White House proposal says if you make up to $75,000, you would get a check for $1,200. Anyone making up to $99,000 would get a smaller check, and families with household incomes under $198,000 would get up to $500 for every child, Amy.
The drive-through, a symbol of America's capitalist invention, now being used to process its millions of unemployed. Florida's online benefit system crashed under the demand. So too in Arkansas, where people are risking their health to come in person to the unemployment office. As unemployed Americans feel they have no choice but to reject White House advice and physically apply for help, the president is suggesting this will all be over soon.
We're hopefully heading toward a final stretch, the light at the end of the tunnel.
That anxiety is not lost on the state's governor. His daily briefings as much about bolstering morale as imparting information.
We're in a battle, right? But this is about a war, and we're only on one battle here. Even once we get through this battle, we have to stay prepared for what could come down the road. And we also have to start to repair the immense damage before you start talking about restarting the economy.
Another necessity, a vaccine. That race continues apace. But scientists say a widely available treatment is still at least a year away, suggesting America's streets may be empty for much longer than the president predicts.
Meanwhile, the U.S. intelligence community announced it does not believe the virus was man-made or genetically modified, but it will investigate whether the outbreak started by accident at a laboratory in Wuhan. Tonight, President Trump said he believes it did come from that lab, but said he's not allowed to say why. Nora?
All right, the slogan used to be, "Don't be evil," but people generally go bad when they have that much power.
Yes.
The power that we're talking about is staggering.
It is staggering.
And we're not even scratching the surface.
Un patto educativo globale.
We need a global compact on education. The world needs to be re-educated, and we need the leaders of the world to come together and sign this compact. And a compact, of course, is a firm contract, promise, treaty, or an agreement. So he's calling on everybody to come together. I wonder who's going to write that out. I say facetiously, it'll probably be produced by the Vatican, and have everyone agree that we need to re-educate the world on what we need to do to save the environment.
Che ci educhi alla solidarietà universale, a un nuovo umanesimo. Per questo ho promosso un evento mondiale.
So he says we're going to promote this global event that is going to create a new universal solidarity. Now that solidarity means a new unity, and that's been his mantra through his papacy, and a new humanism. He talks about, you wonder, what does a new humanism mean? Usually churches are reluctant to talk about humanistic point of view because Christians do not have the humanistic point of view. We've got the Christian worldview.
Che si terrà il 14 maggio del 2020.
Well, friends, I couldn't let this pass without saying something about it. Something else that was in the article that was issued by the Vatican on this. It says, we're inviting international organizations, and you can look these things up at the Vatican websites for yourself. We're inviting international organizations, and note this, the great ones of the earth. Boy, that jumped out at me because it sounds exactly like Revelation 18, where it says, the merchants of Babylon, the great ones of the earth. That's what it says in the Bible, by which all the nations of the earth were deceived with Satan's sorcery. Maybe I'm the only one that thinks that this is something to keep our eyes on. It will be very interesting to see how many Protestant leaders and educators and from where respond to this invitation and say, sign me up, I'm coming, Pope. I'd like to find out more about this global pact. And we need to be praying as that day approaches. The Bible tells us that the wheel of prophecy may turn slowly, but it turns surely and truly. And I think we've just seen another cog in the wheel, another tick of the hand, another ding in the bell of God's prophecy clock.
A year ago in the Vatican, the Pope met with Brad Smith, president of Microsoft. Both believe artificial intelligence research should be based on firm ethical foundations. As a result, they will meet again at the end of February to sign the call for ethics. John Kelly III, Executive Vice President of IBM, will also participate. For now, only Microsoft and IBM intend to sign the call for ethics. The Vatican says if other companies want to join, they are welcome.
Then Pope Francis came to greet President Trump, and the two exchanged initial words.
Putin approached Pope Francis with a slight grin on his face, and the two shook hands.
Examine the facts, we will come to one conclusion: that our world in which we live in is actually improving.
Despite all the very real problems that confront us today, I still see grounds for optimism.
Everyone benefits from digital services.
And prosperity is nothing less than the seedbed for peace.
Come for the world to move in a new direction. We must embrace a new era of engagement based on mutual interest and mutual respect, and our work must begin now.
And the president outlined his vision of a new world order in which the US would participate fully, one rooted on 4 basic principles:
non-proliferation and disarmament, the promotion of peace and security, the preservation of our planet, and a global economy that advances opportunity for all people.
So what happens? What should we be? Is anybody talking about some of the philosophical problems that we're going to be facing? Nobody's even talking to the average person in America. They're going to be blindsided. They're not going to see this stuff coming.
The global race to 5G wireless is on. Countries see the benefits of wireless leadership, and they're doing everything they can to lead in 5G. Last year, the US was behind China and South Korea for 5G. Thanks to unprecedented industry commitment and policymaker action, America is now tied for first with China in overall 5G readiness. And the first large-scale 5G deployments are happening now in communities across the country. But the race isn't over yet. Other countries are making 4 times more mid-band available for 5G.